Welcome to Tu-Vie. Today we're going to be talking about episode 4 of Moon Knight and going over its entire show. So this is your spoiler warning for episodes 1, 2, 3, and 4 of the Disney Plus original. If you haven't seen it yet, please go now. It's a fantastic show. I don't know what you're waiting for. I don't even know why you're watching this video. Go watch it now. But anyways, let's get into it. So in this episode, we actually start with a different character's perspective. Instead of starting with Layla or even Arthur, we start with Osiris, one of the gods we meet in the previous episode. And he's holding Khonshu's sculpted stone imprisonment statue thing, where we know from the last episode where if Khonshu were to disrupt the gods again, he would be imprisoned in said stone. And we see that there's a wall of other sculpts that the gods have imprisoned, at least 10 of them. Now, this is a very large number if you think about it. Like 10 things are a lot. And it's got my theory kind of wondering where if the other gods are actually siding with Arthur and trying to take away any person that would oppose their thoughts, that maybe actually some of the gods side with Arthur's thought that humanity does require judgment and just eradicate it of all sin and evil. The title card sequence happens where we catch up with Layla and Steven from the previous ending where Khonshu and Steven were shifting the stars to find the consolation to Ahmet's tomb. They somehow were tracked down by a group of people that were trying to hunt Mark down, most likely because that's where he was in the beginning of the episode, getting hunted. And Layla actually gets a lot more time in this to kind of show how awesome she is. And we know that she's a great character from comic books and everything, but in the last previous episode we didn't really get much of it, but in this one we saw a lot more, her kind of coming to Steven's rescue and taking out those guys with the flares. It was really cool to see. Steven wakes up and they both get up to find Ahmet's tomb and eventually Arthur's dig site. This is where we see kind of Mark and Steven get into some kind of argument here where Mark is kind of catching on that Steven has feelings for his wife, where we both know that's true, where we can clearly tell that Steve is having feelings for Mark's wife and Mark isn't having that. Before they rope down into the tomb, Steven actually gives Layla a quick little kiss where Mark then punches him in the nose, and I thought that was just a fun little gag there. Now, this is where the rest of the episode gets very Indiana Jones and Tomb Raider. We've kind of seen some of the more mystic side in the last 3 episodes, and now we're definitely hitting this track. Once inside the tomb, they go searching for the sarcophagus, which holds Ahmet's imprisonment, kind of similar to Khonshu's stone imprisonment. Ahmet has one of hers. Once at a crossroads and they can't find a way out, they notice a table full of fresh blood. Now, this is kind of seen as like some sort of sacrifice table, so they're not really sure what's been going on, but they also have seen like bullet shells on the ground and things in the walls and just distant screams. Steven goes up some ladder on a second level looking for a way out while Layla's on the ground level searching for another way out. And then you start hearing some kind of clicking sound, like almost like the clacker ball toys. You know, I'm talking about the one with the rope. Yeah, it's like that. And we see this ancient zombie Egyptian thing that I'm not even sure what it was, but it was freaky. This is also another part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe we haven't seen where it's mystical and dark. We may be exploring more of this kind of thing with Blade or maybe the Midnight Suns if that happens, and possibly Doctor Strange, but this was front and center. I mean, this zombie thing was dragging what looked like one of Arthur's disciples, because we know that they were the first people inside the tomb, and that he puts them on the sacrifice table and kind of eviscerates the man, where he cuts the stomach open and takes vital organs out of the man. Of course he's dead, but like that was brutal. We didn't actually see anything happen. It was kind of hinted at and represented kind of like how Braveheart did it, but it was still super crazy to see. I mean, you don't see those things in Marvel movies, and I'm glad that Marvel's taking their dark side seriously and not kind of just poking fun at it or not taking it as serious as they should, but actually making you feel nervous. Layla tries hiding, which captures the creature's attention, and Steven, being the hero that he is, gets the creature's attention trying to save Layla. The creature does this kind of really weird upside down crawl thing, which was really freaky to see, with his hands kind of going through the floorboards and getting closer to Steven. But of course, Layla and Steven make their own getaway, and Steven goes through the exit that he finds, and Layla just tries finding another way in. Layla kind of comes to this point where it's a big gap in between where she has to be and where she's at, and she knows like those little stones on the side of the wall, kind of like how Tomb Raider, where if there's something like that, you have to do those kind of side step things, and it's kind of scary just to look down on the bottom abyss. But as she's doing that, you see either the same or another ancient Egyptian zombie crawling between her and the stone wall, his hand kind of coming through the wall at times. It was really freaky. But of course, Layla and the zombie get into a fight, and Layla wins by ripping its own hand and beating him with it and throwing him over, and it was super cool to see. And like anything that happens in this show, when a hero does something amazing, Arthur is just standing there watching. It's kind of interesting how Arthur can read people, be accurate in their own subconscious, how he knew that Khonshu was trying to talk to him, saying things like, like I am true justice, or how he even knew the terms of Layla's dad's death. Now we know that Layla's dad has died, and it was hinted at in the previous episode, and that he was into history and everything, which pursued Layla's career. But she herself didn't know how he died. Of course, Arthur did. He kind of briefly says that he was killed by mercenaries, and the only mercenary we know is Mark. He's putting hints that Mark actually did the hit on her father. While Layla is faced with the truth, Stephen finds the sarcophagus, which is actually Alexander the Great sarcophagus. Probably in this universe, this is where Alexander the Great sarcophagus was never found, but even though in our reality it's found in 2019. But either way, it was still super cool to see Stephen have that another moment of wonder, and that his own appreciation for this finally came to fruition, and that he actually has a purpose in this. Stephen busts open the sarcophagus and steals Ahmet's sculpture, which was lodged inside Alex's throat. Now, I don't know if you guys ever swallowed like a chip sideways and it kind of cuts your throat, but this was like a 11-inch long stone sculpt. I mean, that couldn't have been comfortable. Once Stephen gets the sculpt, Layla is of course there and present. Layla kind of asking Stephen questions that Mark should be answering, forcing Mark to actually come out and face the truth. He explains that he was hired to go on a mercenary hunt at the dig site where Layla's father was. But the thing is, Mark never killed him. He didn't shoot at him specifically. He did, however, kill the people that he was contracted to kill, but his partner, Mark's partner, got a little greedy and started killing everyone else, which sadly was Layla's dad. And actually even turns on him, Mark, leaving him dead in the sands, which is, I think, the callback from when Khonshu said, when I met you, you were nothing but a corpse, and how he met him and became Moon Knight. And possibly that is the first act of justice Khonshu puts on someone through Mark, where we all know that Moon Knight is the fist of Khonshu and he delivers justice. So maybe this was the first act of his own pursuit. During this little Q&A portion of the show, Arthur monologues in with his guards as always. It was interesting to hear how Arthur was talking to Mark and having him say, I know what it's like to have Khonshu out of your head, the liberation of silence. It was very interesting how accurate Arthur is, because we all know he was his avatar once, but it's weird to see him actually be accurate with everybody else. Like Layla, he's never really met the woman, so to him talking about her dad like that had to be a shock. He tries having Mark give him the sculpt, where we all know that's not going to happen. The hero just never gives up. Arthur forces some of his guards to go take it out of Mark's hands, where he actually kills a couple of people with some cool golden axe thing. I thought it was kind of neat. And shocking enough, Arthur kills Mark. We've never actually seen Arthur kill anyone with his own hands or a weapon of some sort. It's always been Ahmet and the scales. But this one, he pulls out like a revolver and loads 2 bullets in him. Mark stumbles back into some kind of pool of water, where Arthur says, I cannot save those who won't save themselves. And it kind of goes into that deep sequence like from Get Out, where Daniel Kaluuya was just kind of falling. It was like that. And this is where everything comes to just a full 180. Once the sequence of Mark falling in the black abyss is over, we cut to some kind of old-timey movie, almost kind of like Romancing the Stone kind of vibe, and we see these characters going on some kind of expedition where they're looking for some artifact, and the little sidekick character is there talking, the cliche, fun little quips. And turns out the hero of that movie is named Stephen Grant. We pan out and we're actually in a mental asylum. Now, this is a callback to Jeff Lemire's 2016 run Moon Knight, where Mark wakes up in an insane asylum with memories of being a superhero, but actually no powers. It was kind of cool to see that callback to that comic line and see where it goes next. Is very interesting. This entire sequence of the asylum opening is a one shot, and I'm a sucker for one shot, so it was really cool seeing all the callbacks. From the TV, we pan out and we see a man holding a B-22 ball. Now, this is, of course, bingo, and we all know how that works, and which was a teased photo on the Marvel's Twitter page showing B-22. In the one shot, we see a man holding a Rubik's Cube, which was what something Stephen was holding when he was trying to sleep listening to that audio tape. Donna, Stephen's former boss from the museum, is also a patient at the asylum playing a game of bingo as well. Cupcakes are given to the patients seen from episode 1, and even a lady drawing a bird with the head of Khonshu was seen, in the pan, and kind of referencing to that joke that Stephen made in a previous episode. A man kind of working on a small garden, which is possibly a reference to the second episode where Arthur took Mark the little hideout where everybody was staying, and they had a little garden in the background. Then we see a whiteboard kind of covered in postcards similar to the ones we saw in Stephen's apartment. Next to the whiteboard is Mark sitting in a wheelchair, kind of just slumped and looks kind of drugged. And next to him on his right is a little goldfish in a bowl with 2 fins. So Gus may have never existed at all. We see Mark holding some kind of Moon Knight toy with an ankle restraint on the wheelchair he is bound to. So the whole thing about the bed is just a lie, and possibly holding the Moon Knight toy as if it was a personality like we did as kids. Layla is also seen as a patient within the asylum, giving him the postcards and helping him out with the bingo game. We then cut to Mark sitting down with the head doctor of the asylum, which is Arthur. Who would have guessed? The movie scene prior in the background was named Tomb Buster. We saw a VHS cover of it, which is kind of funny because this whole episode is heavily Tomb Raider. So I thought it was kind of fun with a little nod and, poking fun of how they're doing the show. Mark is, like I said, talking to Arthur, who is sitting in this white painted room, which kind of looked like the hideout, but just painted white. As the conversation goes on, Mark starts noticing things about reality that are in this place. Arthur's shoes, for instance, the kind of wicker basket leather looking thing. He notices sculptures, but again, just painted white. Even Arthur's cane has a different look, like with a kind of granite handle and a very nice, sweet pine, staff part. It looked very cool, but everything about it seemed different. Kind of like in Shutter Island, where the patients are in certain areas and everything seems kind of off. That's kind of how it felt with this episode. Mark puts the pieces together and realized this isn't reality at all, but some kind of fiction. Mark breaks free and starts running away from the guards and Arthur. He hides in some random room where he sees another sarcophagus moving. Mark rips open the sarcophagus and out pops Steven. They kind of have this fun little reuniting thing where they both kind of look at each other, because we've never actually seen the two personalities stand side by side, only through reflections, and kind of having that embrace was nice for them to have that relief moment, but it was still super weird to see that and kind of cool at the same time. But it was very interesting to see the dynamic of them start to grow. They both try and figure out a way of escaping and passing a room with another door open with another sarcophagus moving. Now, they don't even touch that sarcophagus, which possibly could be Jake Lockley. Now, I know every single Marvel fan is wanting Jake Lockley, the third personality, to come out, but I mean, come on, him coming out of the sarcophagus and helping them escape would be a fantastic way introducing this character. Now, of course, we get literally nothing of Jake besides some references in that little sarcophagus, but practically nothing. Mark and Steven are walking towards the door where we get an unexpected guest holding the door for them. A giant ancient Egyptian talking hippo. You heard me. Hippo. Now, this talking hippo could be the goddess of Taweret, who was hinted at in the very first episode of Moon Knight when they were doing inventory, and Donna was saying, hand me the hippos, and he corrected her by saying the goddess Taweret. Taweret is the goddess of child and mother in pregnancy and childbirth, which is an interesting thing to see and a fun little callback that I hope that she does help Mark and Steven escape, which brings episode 4 to a close. Personally, this episode felt very, very interesting, and I love the Tomb Raider dynamic that they start with and then touching into the dark horror vibes and then ending with this mind melter of a twist. Either way, this episode was another knockout. I'm truly loving this show, and this show is only going to get better from here, and I cannot wait to see the last 2 episodes are going to be. I have my theories about how the show is going to end, possibly with Arthur being the werewolf, because we do know as the moon phases throughout the episodes in the post-credit, it just gets closer to a full moon, and Moon Knight being his most powerful at a full moon and Arthur being possibly a werewolf at a full moon would be such a cool battle to see. I mean, 2 beings powered by the moon and with their height of their power being acted in that moment would just be super cool, because we also know we're getting a werewolf show, possibly some kind of project, but it'd be really interesting to introduce it like that. But whatever happens, we'll be covering it here on Tu-Vie. If you guys did enjoy this episode, click the like button and as well subscribe for more. Comment your thoughts about this episode. I liked it a lot, and I want to hear your guys' opinion and let me know what your guys' thoughts are. Be sure to check us out on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. Be sure to check us out on Spotify and everywhere else you get podcasts. We have a lot of great episodes out right now and a very fun one coming very soon. Thank you guys for watching, and as always, welcome to Tu-Vie.